Hello world, it's Tuesday the 24th of January and we're looking at a forecast for Soaring from Worcester tomorrow, Wednesday the 25th of January 2023. A quick look at the T5 for Worcester. We can see it's a cooler day, 26-27 degrees. We have an inversion at 5,500 feet, some thermic and a southeasterly wind. But there's a little bit of something going on over here and we will look at that shortly. Let's first look at cloud. When the southeaster comes in, we always worry about the cloud messing things up, and we can see that at 2 o'clock there's not very much cloud, and what there is quite far out and pretty high, so that's not too bad. 5 o'clock cloud has almost disappeared, which is a bit unusual, but we'll see. Let's look at the top of the thermal layer, the height of the thermal layer, because if there's no cloud, maybe there are no thermals. That's 2 o'clock, quite healthy in the Worcester Valley, but lower to the north. And something that you can just pick up here is that you can see that the height of these color bars goes up in step with the height of the black lines, which are the contour lines, the terrain contour lines. So it's almost as if we get to a point where the top of the thermal is the top of the terrain, and as the terrain gets taller, the model says, well, the top of the thermal must also be taller. But in the valley, there's definitely some genuine thermal activity here. Zooming out, we can see that's good, and getting round to the east, that light blue is 5,000 feet, so not too bad. And to the north, same light blue, around 4,000 to 5,000 feet, maybe a bit more, like 4,000 feet. 5 o'clock, we see the blue holes appearing as the coastal air comes in and cools things down. Still working in the Worcester Valley, still working in the Tilbach Valley with let's see, 4,000, just over 4,000 feet. Zooming out, we can see that to the east at 5 o'clock we've got some big blue holes. The cool air has come in and it's killed it all off to below 3,000 feet. Let's look at some winds to try and get an idea what's still going on here. Here's our southeast wind. It's coming up the valley. It's blowing onto the Langeberg, gets round the corner, blows onto the Witzenberg, and also onto Portable and Frontridge. So it looks like it should be alright. But this one is the wind at the top of the boundary layer. Now we saw how high the boundary layers were. It's about 4,000 feet. So this is a wind at around about 4,000 feet, and you can see that the upper air wind is a northeaster, and it's crossing from the backside of all of these ridges. Backside of Tilbach, backside of Portable, Front Ridge, Langeberg, even the Riffieshorner End Mountains might work the wrong way. So this is getting a bit interesting. Looking at the surface winds at further out, we can see once again looks fine along the Langeberg. It's still blowing onto the Cederberg and the Renosterhoek ridges, although those wind speeds up there are getting quite low, 6 knots, even below that in places, up to maybe 10. The boundary layer top winds, once again, it's coming down off the plateau and going straight over the ridge at quite high speed. 5 o'clock, similar pattern. These winds are a bit stronger, 14 knots, 10 knots there, but the boundary layer top wind is still doing funny things. A bit different over here, but still doing things. But we will look some more before we finish. Surface winds at 5 o'clock, onto the ridge, very strongly onto the ridge, along the eastern ridges, but other things going on as well. just to get a feeling for what's actually happening with this wind. This is a cross section, 850 millibars, so 4,500 feet. So at 4,500 feet at 2 o'clock, the wind is basically an easterly. And zooming out, it's still easterly, northeasterly, and even southerly. And at 5 o'clock, it's looking better. In the valley, it's southeasterly, and it goes on to the Witzenberg. It doesn't actually go onto the Porterville Ridge. And zooming out, we can see that at 5 o'clock, it's definitely blowing the wrong way along the Langeberg. And very parallel along the Cederberg. Let's look at some soundings just to see exactly what we can do with this day. We'll start with Robertson, 2 o'clock. Looks alright, except here we see this wind. It's southeast, and then it veers around or swings around to a northeast and gets quite strong above the ridge. And the inversion layer, or the inversion itself, is at 6,500 feet, but the thermic layer drops off before it reaches that. So yes, it'll work, but it's not as strong as you might think at first. At 5 o'clock, it's been killed off. This northeast wind has come through, and the effective usable height has dropped to just on 4,000 feet. Swellendam, a similar picture, southeast going very easterly and then northeasterly, and gets killed off by 5 o'clock. Riversdale, it's the same trend. If we go to the north, Tilbach, 2 o'clock, this wind is very southerly, even Tilbach it's slightly southeast, blowing off the Langeberg, off the Witzenberg, but on the mountain itself it's still a windward component we saw earlier. And just over 4,000 feet. With the Witzenberg, that will probably work. And at 5 o'clock, over 4,000 feet, still totally southerly, but it is some wind at just below 10 knots. And once again, the Witzenberg should work, maybe not very strong. Porterville, it's working up to about 4,000 feet with that inversion at 2 o'clock. And at 5 o'clock, the inversion is higher, the wind is stronger, but it's more southerly. Renosterhoek, similar picture, very southerly, going southwesterly, and actually looking quite good at 5 o'clock. I'll peek at Clanwilliam, although that inversion is a bit low to go into the Cederberg. The wind direction is reasonable, and we do have this tweak, but it's also a little bit low. Clanwilliam, 5 o'clock, looking slightly better. Claver, okay, that's definitely blowing the wrong way for the Claver Ridge, so we probably don't want to go there. And at 5 o'clock, it's probably a bit low to go there, so Claver's probably a ridge too far. So what are we looking at for tomorrow? It will be an interesting day. Maybe an early run out to the east, but you really want to clear out of there before that lift dies off, and we can see it dies off quite early. To the north, won't be very strong, but it looks like it will carry on later into the day, and maybe in the mid to late afternoon there will still be some things happening there. It won't be very high, it's not directly onto the ridge, but there is signs that we could get a task in. Just one final comment about this wind tomorrow. One thing that we do get, if we go back to this sounding here, when we do get this wind shear and the inversion all happening at the same height as the top of the ridge, those conditions are favorable for turbulence, and every now and then we get some very strong turbulence when all of these forces meet and there's a gap or something in the ridge that allows one air mass to mix up with the other. So be a little bit careful tomorrow. Don't fly too close or too slow, or if you're close, go fast, but make sure you've got enough aileron authority to handle anything that might come gusting your way. It'll be an interesting day tomorrow. I'll update this in the morning, and I'm sure you will fly, so fly safely, and I'm sure you'll have fun. Good night.